Get underway.
Please.
Thanks. So good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Leeper. I'm the City Councillor for Kitchissippi Ward. This evening, obviously, we're here to take a look at the rezoning that has been requested by the NCC for the parcel of land that is between Burnside and the Sir John A. Macdonald Parkway to be allowed to build embassies on it. The proponents, the applicants, are going to take us through a presentation that will tell us exactly what it is that they are seeking. I'm going to ask them to keep that fairly brief. You know, if we can keep it in that 20-minute mark, that would be amazing. And then it'll be turned over to Q&A. I'm going to ask Fiona in a moment or so to take people through how Q&A works, etc. I do want to address up front, I know there are 91 people on the call this evening. This is because of the pandemic, we've gone to a virtual open house format, and the frustration that I'm going to guess many of you are going to feel is that you're going to want to debate and raise a lot of different points, criticisms of the plan, and it's not going to be as interactive as a traditional open house where you can kind of stand up and challenge the proponent. This is not your only opportunity to provide feedback on this. And in fact, the most helpful feedback is always by email to myself and to Allison Hamlin, who's on the call. Allison is the planner who's going to evaluate this plan with a view to making a recommendation to City Council as to whether or not they should approve the rezoning or not. Fiona has actually put in the email addresses. So tonight is really an opportunity to pose questions. There is a Q&A. We're going to spend lots of time on that. Pose your questions. If you type in a question that is actually a comment, Fiona is going to read that out to the applicants, and they can either address it or just take note of it. This is not an official meeting of the city. The city only has one official statutory meeting, and that's at the Planning Committee. This is a meeting that I host in order to give residents an opportunity to learn about the proposal and to ask questions. And the most useful thing is to get the feedback back by email afterwards. So I just wanted to address that up front, that this is not quite as interactive as some of the in-person open houses that we used to hold in the before times. Fiona, can you take us through how the Q&A is going to go and introduce the applicant team?
For sure. Thanks, Jeff. So lots of you folks have done these webinar development webinars with us before, but for those who are joining us for the first time, I always like to go through everything so that we know how tonight's going to proceed. So as Jeff mentioned, very shortly, we're going to turn it over to the applicant's team, who's going to give a 20-minute or so presentation on the application that we're here to discuss today. Afterwards, we're going to move into a Q&A. So lots of folks have figured this out already because I have some questions in the queue already. But if you're on a desktop, at the bottom of your screen, there should be a Q&A button. If you're on a tablet or a phone, I'm not 100% sure where it is, but it is there somewhere. You should see that pop up. You're going to want to type your question into there. Then we're going to answer them out loud, and they will move into the answered column. So you'll see the questions as they are answered pop up. I already have 20 questions in the queue, and some of them are quite substantial. Some of them are very long, so I might cut your question down for the sake of just like getting to the question without some of the additional details. As Jeff said, this is not the be all and end all for public feedback and for asking your questions. I'm anticipating tonight we're not going to get through all the questions. If we're already at 23 questions, that's half an hour of discussion already. So what I can do is the remaining questions that don't get answered tonight, that haven't already been answered in the discussion, I will copy and paste them, and make sure that the applicant is providing the response. And you can email our office, and I'd be happy to send you the response to those questions. As well, I'm going to try to avoid repeated questions as I go through as much as possible. So if someone has a question about trees and how many trees are going to be lost, and then a few questions later we have the same question about impacts to trees, I'm going to consider that answered, and we're not going to go over that again. If someone comes into the meeting late and they miss that response the first time, we're recording this and it will be on YouTube by the end of this week or early next week. Or again, you can also email our office and we'd be happy to give you that information. Just because we're only here for a few hours together, we want to make sure we get as many different questions answered tonight as possible. As you may have noticed, I sent some links in the chat. You can't respond back, but you can, I may send you some information in the chat throughout our conversation here tonight, so keep an eye for that to light up. I do see some hands being raised. We're not doing raised hands tonight. The way you want to communicate with us is through the Q&A. So if you have a comment for me, like Fiona, something technical is happening or something like that, that you want me to be aware of like immediately in this moment, put it in the Q&A and I will try to grab that as fast as possible. I think that's all I have to say, although I will since I'm talking, but we do have Allison Hamlin is the city planner. I can't remember if Jeff introduced her earlier, but so she is here today, and I'm going to turn it over to Matt McElligott with Photon, and he is going to introduce his team and move into a presentation. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Fiona, very much for that. As usual, running a tight ship, and I appreciate that. So I guess first and foremost, I'll thank, well, the counselor's office, Fiona, and everyone who's in attendance tonight. You know, we understand that the applications have generated quite a bit of interest. So, you know, we're trying to keep the presentation short, but it's necessary to provide some background, as well as to provide some further clarity on the planning context for these lands. So just kind of quickly, maybe, not sure if I'm able to share my screen, Fiona? Or
yeah, you should be able to now, Matt.
Okay, so, all right. Just make sure this is working. Okay, so you should be seeing maybe we'll go full screen mode here. Does that work?
Looks good.
Okay. So again, thanks so much. Maybe I'll just skip right to the next slide and do some team introductions. So again, my name's Matthew McElligott. I'm Principal Planning and Policy at Photon Consultants. I'm joined here by my colleague, Gada Zaki, who's also on the call and a panelist, as well as my colleagues over at the NCC. So Ted Horton, Senior Planner, Municipal Liaison, Andrew Sacred, Chief of Long Range Planning and Transportation, Jason Hutchison, Chief Federal Approvals, and Chantal Miner, Chief Real Estate Transactions. And as you know, Allison Hamlin, the city planner on this file, is also a panelist. So that kind of is the team for tonight. So I'll be providing kind of an overview of the municipal policy and regulations. And Andrew Sacred will be speaking to the NCC policy and plans. Again, I really want to try to keep this as short as possible to ensure there's ample time to address questions and concerns. And of course, it has generated a lot of interest. So on that, we will hit the next slide. Okay, so context. I mean, of course, everyone knows the lands, but just to kind of situate everyone on the call, the lands are located south of Sir John A. Macdonald Parkway, between Slidell to the east and Ford Avenue to the west. Burnside Avenue is located to the south of the lands. Overall, the property is approximately 3.7 hectares in size and are vegetated with grassed areas and trees. Directly west of the subject lands is the Embassy of Indonesia, which displays a total height of 4 stories. This diplomatic mission or building has frontage along both Parkdale Avenue and Emerson Avenue and features a large surface parking area which directly abuts the western periphery of the lands. So just to kind of obviously situate yourself, I mean, here's just a very basic graphic showing the Innovation Center, the Embassy of Indonesia on kind of flanking either side of the Roche Park. I don't think I need to get into this. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass the baton over to Andrew Sacred right now, who's going to walk you through the two major NCC policy documents that are pertinent to this application. So at that, I'll let Andrew speak, and I'll be here to speak to the municipal documents. Thanks.
Super, thanks very much, Matt. So one thing that's a little bit different perhaps about this file is the nature of the NCC and its roles and responsibilities in the National Capital Region. So under the National Capital Act, the NCC has the mandate to plan for federal lands within the National Capital Region, and as well the authority to approve land use and design on federal lands. So we prepare plans of our own under that act, and the overarching plan governing lands in the National Capital Region is the Plan for Canada's Capital 2017 to 2067. And in that plan, we set out the importance of diplomatic missions to the functioning of Canada's capital and the promotion of political, trade, and cultural links with foreign countries. So some of the policies in that plan clarify the NCC's role to assist foreign nations to find appropriate spaces and lands for what we consider a very important capital function, and also a mandate through those policies to keep an inventory of lands to assist with that purpose. What we have on the screen at the moment is a schedule from the Capital Urban Lands Plan. This was approved by the NCC Board of Directors in 2015. And when reading this, the text of the document, there is envisages that certain parkway corridor lands may serve a future diplomatic precinct. So in that plan, we're already presaging that there would be the possibility of diplomatic missions along the parkway. Next slide, please. What we have here is a slide from the Ottawa River South Shore Riverfront Park Plan, a little bit of a tongue twister, but this plan was approved by the NCC Board of Directors in 2018. And in that plan, we confirmed the NCC's intent, federal government's intent for these lands to serve as a future diplomatic precinct. So this plan provides detailed planning guidance for federal lands within the whole study area, namely that riverfront corridor, including federal land use, design, and real estate transactions. And then the approval of the Ottawa River South Shore Riverfront Park Plan, this establishes the most current land use guidance and decision of the NCC Board of Directors with respect to these lands. Hope that gives a little bit of overview of the NCC planning policies that apply to these lands. I'll pass it back to Matt now.
Thanks, Andrew. And you know, in the interest of time and questions, we're going to keep it high level. So just moving along to the municipal planning framework applicable to the site. The lands are designated both general urban area and open space on Schedule B of the official plan. So again, without getting into too much detail, the lands designated general urban can accommodate a range of uses and users, including diplomatic missions and offices. And I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, probably not, but it's that yellow kind of square at the the western limit of the graphic here. So just to kind of situate yourself, so it's just it's located just north of the apartment building. Lands designated major open space, of course, the majority of the lands generally form part of the city's green space network, of course. Within that open space designation, it's worth noting, though, that there are some, non-open space uses, including fire stations, Canadian Geographic offices, restaurants, as well as the Embassy of the United States. So, the proposed uses being sought through this process is similar in character to these permitted uses, and you do see that in on lands designated open space throughout the city. The policies of the official plan encourage the City of Ottawa to work with its partners, such as the NCC, on studies and plans for major open space and the Ottawa River Corridor, which is something that, of course, Andrew just touched on. So moving along to the next slide, which is a snapshot of the secondary plan, so the Scott Street secondary plan. In 2015, the City of Ottawa approved the secondary plan and community design plan to help guide the development of that planning area. The policies of the plan are based on the community design plan for Scott Street, translating many of the key aspects of the CDP into statutory policy. So the Scott Street secondary plan designates the entire NCC parcel as open space, as shown, on your screen here. Though curiously, I find the smaller kind of square-shaped parcel that was designated general urban area in the official plan is actually designated open space. And this is a discrepancy that's also kind of inconsistent with the existing zoning for the lands, and I'll get into that. But it also includes that existing Indonesian embassy, which neighbors the land. So those two sites really shouldn't have been attributed at some point to open space in the secondary plan, but nonetheless, they are. So moving along just quickly here again, in the interest of time, the majority of the land, this is a snapshot of the community design plan. And the majority of the lands are identified as capital function in the CDP's proposed land use plan. There is a section, called the NCC open space, located at the eastern limits, I guess, closer to the Slidell roundabout, and connects La Roche Park to the NCC Riverfront Parklands. The CDP contemplates these future embassies, diplomatic uses as a land use on the lands. And specifically it states, and I'm going to quote, the pathways will help define parcels for future embassies or other development and ensure such uses do not create a barrier to the riverfront. So this is kind of in concert with the public realm plan. But on that point, the CDP also includes an expanded pedestrian and cycling network with the potential connections through NCC lands to the Sir John A. Macdonald Parkway. So, really providing a better connection to obviously what's a huge benefit and perk to the community. Another image here from the Scott Street CDP, just kind of an image from that CDP illustrating that, these uses were always contemplated as part of the NCC's mandate. Of course, it's very high level, and these blocks are again just simply conceptual, but just kind of gives you a flavor of what was being considered at the time of the CDP. Again, it clearly shows that the capital function of the lands was contemplated, and fulfilling its intended function as a connector between La Roche and La Roche Park and the open space corridor along the Ottawa River Parkway. You see the little kind of parkette or pocket park, I guess, towards the Slidell roundabout. So kind of moving through the policy documents, now we're getting into the regulatory documents, so otherwise known as the zoning bylaw. And the lands are actually split zone, residential 5th density, subzone B, maximum building height 37. I mean, that's a bit of a mouthful, but you could probably make it out on your screen here, and that corresponds or correlates to that little square parcel adjacent the existing apartment building that's designated general urban area. The height of 37 allows, as of right, an apartment building of up to approximately 12 stories. But of course, the majority of the lands is zoned open space, a subzone L, with an exception. and a holding. So again, this is a lot of planning jargon, but I'm going to try to give you the Coles note on what that means. I mean, of course, the open space zone, is related to open spaces and parkland. But I think what's pertinent here is really stripping away that and understanding what the exception states. And exception 310 permits the following uses. And there's maybe about 15 uses here. I'm not going to read them all, in the interest of time. But things like community health and resource center, a courthouse, place of worship, emergency service, hospital, correctional facility, municipal service center, storage yard, schools. These are all things that are permitted as of right today, without any changes to the regulation. So no zoning changes. These are actually permitted in the zoning. That's not what we're proposing here, obviously. It's just all that to say is that exception already allows for uses that are not really characteristic of that major open space or open space designation within the official plan or the secondary plan. So this is obviously the concept plan that was prepared along with the application. Of course, the NCC is proposing to position the lands from a policy and regulatory perspective to allow for future diplomatic missions akin to the Embassy of Indonesia. As you've heard, the development of embassies and diplomatic missions on the site aligns with the capital function of the lands as defined by the NCC and as represented in the Scott Street Community Design Plan. Although at this time, specific embassies and nations have not been identified, this conceptual plan was submitted as required for the development applications. So this was a requirement that we needed to submit as part of the applications. And I think that's important because I want to stress that these are just a concept plan. It illustrates an option on how the lands could be developed, but certainly not how it will be developed. I'm sure that the building footprints won't look like this and the parking won't be necessarily arranged like this. And I think this is a really important point to make, because I think sometimes it's really easy to kind of get fixated on the layout and the design. But again, this is really just to show what could happen in terms of number of buildings and layout. This is not the determination of the exact full build out. So that said, specific building footprints, parking areas are not being proposed at this time and would be subject to additional approvals by not only the NCC, but the City of Ottawa through their development applications. So maybe I'll just kind of quickly walk you through the development applications. You've heard me speak a little bit about it. Of course, 2 development applications have been submitted to the city to address the requested change to land use. So that being an official plan amendment to the secondary plan and a zoning bylaw amendment application. These applications are on technical circulation with the city. We're meeting with you folks, of course, tonight. The OPA official plan amendment, that is, addresses the open space designation, seeks to introduce a site-specific policy to permit diplomatic missions and office uses on these lands. The zoning bylaw amendment also seeks to add diplomatic missions and office uses on these lands. So I just want to clarify also, because it is kind of confusing, the nuances between diplomatic missions, embassies, offices. The city's bylaw actually doesn't define embassies, so they rely on the term diplomatic mission, and that's defined as primarily a, quote, residential use building of the accredited head or member of a diplomatic mission of a recognized foreign or Commonwealth state having diplomatic or official status in Canada. So these things may include an office in accessory to and in conjunction with the residence and a security hut. But what this doesn't say is that it would be a classic diplomatic mission, in that it's not necessarily a residence first and foremost. It's, you know, you couldn't have an office without, maybe the way to put it is we would require both uses to be permitted because this isn't necessarily, these aren't lands to be identified as residential per se for embassy uses, but rather for the function of the diplomatic uses. And we could clarify that through the Q&A and you know, of course, when we get into specifics in the question and answer period, my colleagues over at the NCC will be able to, you know, provide a little bit more light on the types of uses and operations that go on inside of these missions. So just to kind of wrap up, you know, of course, a part of the land is zone R5, and that does permit diplomatic mission uses. So the zoning bylaw amendment actually proposes to simply add office as a permitted use within that zoning with a residence that's kind of accessory to in conjunction with that mission. So, so those are the applications. I hope it makes some sense, and we're happy to clarify, you know, exactly what that is through the question and answer. So we invite those questions, absolutely. So as I said, the development applications have been submitted to the city. And you know, these are kind of the next steps, but I think what I'll do is I'll pass it again over to Andrew to kind of conclude, but more specifically to address the FLUDA, which is an acronym for Federal Land Use and Design Approval. So it's not only the city's approvals that would need to be, you know, rigorously reviewed and eventually debated, I guess, at planning committee and council, but also internally with the NCC. And I'll just pass it over to Andrew to maybe just provide a bit of a description before we get into the Q&A. So thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I won't spend too much time on that. Simply to say that there is another step down the road when we have a specific nation to work with, and we would be working with them to develop the architectural plan and site plan for the individual sites. So that's a process that would come down the road, and my colleague Jason can provide further details later in the Q&A if need be. Thanks. Thanks for that presentation, Matt. Pardon me.
Yeah. So thank you, Fiona. I'll pass the baton over to you, and you know, of course, our entire team is here to you know, answer question, or you know, answer as best we can some of the questions. I understand many of them will be at a level that's typically, you know, addressed at site plan. So we're going to do our best to answer, you know, questions, concerns. Did you want me to stop sharing as well, my screen, or?
You can share. Yeah, that's
okay.
Fine. It records speaker view, so it'll just keep recording whoever's speaking.
Sure.
Okay, so we are going to move into the Q&A. Just so folks know, it is 7:30 and there are 63 questions. So we will get through as many as we can. Feel free to keep them coming, just keeping in mind we may not answer it tonight, but if that happens, we will follow up with the information. Okay, so first question. The federal government is currently demolishing vacant office buildings in Tunney's Pasture, and it has the infrastructure to accommodate 6 diplomatic office buildings. Question. Has the NCC investigated Tunney's Pasture for a proposed diplomatic precinct to avoid destroying green space and wildlife habitat? And I just want to add that further down on the queue, there is a similar question asking if the NCC has considered alternative sites. So I will lump those two together.
Okay, thanks very much, Fiona, for those questions. In regards to Tunney's Pasture specifically, there is a development plan underway with Public Services and Procurement Canada, and they're working on that as a federal, primarily federal accommodation facility site, and so that's the plan for that particular that particular site. There are, and in terms of other sites of federal lands within the core area or near the core area of the capital, there are a few candidate sites that would be suitable for this type of use. This was identified, this particular site was identified through those planning exercises through 2015. Well, prior to that, the Capital Urban Lands Plan, which was approved in 2015, and then the Ottawa South Shore Riverfront Park Plan, where we discerned that this was a suitable site for this particular use, and that was subject to other public consultations on those plans.
Yeah, and the only thing I would maybe add to that, and I know the councillor, has maybe also been frustrated in trying to get an understanding from Public Works as to what's happening with those lands. I understand that there was a master plan that was prepared for the area, and nothing has happened in any of recent years, unfortunately. It's a good question because obviously that whole employment node is very underutilized, but it simply isn't within the NCC's land holdings, or therefore their purview to to address. Effectively, it's not within their jurisdiction. So I don't know if Jeff wanted to even shed some light on that, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I'll make it quick because there are still 70 questions in here, but Tunney's Pasture has an approved master plan that sees it evolve into a sort of a dense mixed use development. The federal government hasn't indicated that they want to open that back up again. And I know that they are in the planning process of implementing that master plan, and that the community should be getting a view of that. I'm hoping within the next few months, but certainly it's something I would urge the NCC to consider, is to work with its other federal partners. If it must have an embassy zone, consider Tunney's Pasture. Fiona?
Thank you. So we're going to move into some environment and green space related questions. The city has declared a climate emergency for the purposes of naming, framing, and deepening our commitment to protecting our economy, our ecosystems, and our community from climate change. Will the NCC withdraw its application in support of this declaration?
Well, we certainly understand climate change and are taking it seriously. That there is we've got our sustainable development strategy, working on a forest strategy, and a number of other environmental policies. I'd also like to point out that we, as the federal government in the National Capital Region, are the owners of 11% of the land base, much of which is set aside, protected for ecological uses and recreation, and our policies for those lands, Gatineau Park, the Greenbelt in particular, but also the other urban lands that are capital urban green space. We take that stewardship responsibility very seriously. That said, through the development of the Riverfront Park Plan, a small portion, these few hectares were set aside to provide this particular use.
Okay, thank you. On the theme of green space, why does the NCC feel that it is more important to accommodate foreign diplomats than to preserve precious green space and wildlife habitat?
That's an interesting question, Fiona, and I appreciate that. Again, it goes back to the earlier part of what I was saying in the conversation about the mandate of the NCC. So we have a very special mandate under the National Capital Act to plan the capital and all of its functions that support what it means to be a capital. And part of that is to have foreign representation in the city, to welcome our foreign diplomats to Ottawa, to the National Capital Region. And so we do have a mandate, and this is a very small piece of land within the wider, the much wider portfolio of NCC and federal land in the Capital Region, which can serve this particular purpose.
Okay, thank you.
It's and just to say, it's not about having a total dichotomy between the foreign foreign guests to the capital and green space. I don't necessarily see how those are diametrically opposed.
Okay. Excuse me, just give me 1 second to find my next one. Okay, this was part of a larger question with more information, so you should see the rest of it when I click answer live. I'll read half of it. The overall density and peak western density creates a desperate need for neighborhood green space with a park off of Forward Ave. Excuse me. The NCC site is the only vehicle available to make a meaningful contribution to the community's health, well-being, and vibrancy. Question, will the NCC commit to working with the community to develop green space and parkland that will create a sustainable, healthy, vibrant community in Mechanicsville?
Okay, again, we can answer this on a couple of different levels. So for one, I think it's important to look at the fact that we have developed a parklands policy for the Ottawa River South Shore after quite a bit of consultation with the community and work with partners, including the City of Ottawa, and we're putting that plan in action. It's it's a multi-year, multi-decade perhaps project to improve and steward the Ottawa River South Shore Park along the Sir John A. Macdonald Parkway, and you'll note that in the plans we are fostering connections from the community into the NCC Shoreline Park with those connections directly through, and then by preserving some capital green space at the intersection of Slidell and the Parkway.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, and Fiona, I would just add that this was, this was kind of formed part of those discussions in 2015 and earlier with regards to the community design plan. But I certainly, of course, I don't work at this NCC, but there is a commitment there to, enhance the pathway connections to the Sir John A. Macdonald Parkway. Of course, and that parkette or whatever the Capital Park. So, anyways, we'll continue.
Okay. Going back to alternative locations, I just want to raise, somebody asked, has the NCC reviewed its portfolio of land holdings in the Byward Market and Spark Street and encouraged MCs to relocate there? I just wanted to make sure that was captured, and if you'd like to speak to that.
Thanks, Fiona. Yeah, I think that's a good question. The Byward Market and Spark Street are pretty special places in the capital. We've been working with the City of Ottawa over many years and to create more vibrancy in both of those very important districts. So Spark Street as a pedestrian way right through the heart of the capital is very, very important. When we're working with our partners, the City of Ottawa, the Public Services and Procurement Canada, to really help animate that site. And similarly for the Byward Market, where the focus is very much on vibrancy and shops and restaurants and those kinds of amenities that are so desired by residents. So that's the focus of those particular areas, and we are working hard to improve them on that level. I would say that conversely, that an embassy doesn't really fit with that kind of animation that we would be seeking in the Byward Market and on Spark Street.
Okay, thank you. Can there be a pathway from the corner of Emerson / forward to the SJAM so that people can get to the dog park easily?
I think I need to have a look again at the land mass to see how that works, but we can take that comment back and consider that. Oh, what are you showing there?
So I think just to clarify, that would be kind of the most eastern limit to, or sorry, the western limit of the concept plan.
I'm having a hard time in this particular.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can see my.
Oh, I see. So sort of between Indonesia and the first embassy, if we could put it that way. The concept plan is a concept. We can think about how things could be optimized. But let's take that one back.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly it's a good comment, and we will continue to discuss them, and makes sense. I think the commitment is there regardless to provide those pathway connections and again enhance that pedestrian environment.
Thank you. Jeff, but I suppose the NCC can respond as well. Have Toby Nussbaum or others at the NCC indicated how badly they want this?
I have only spoken with NCC staff and Toby's staff. And I mean, they're persisting to the point of doing this. I intend to have further conversations. Toby and I have corresponded briefly on it. He is a politician at heart, and it's going to be difficult for me to discern how hard they're going to fight for this, but I know I will be continuing to have that conversation with them. I couldn't tell you tonight how dead set the NCC is on doing this.
I'd like to rebut a little bit on that one, Jeff. I want to be clear that we are a planner of federal lands. That's the responsibility that we have, and that we go through rigorous planning processes to discern the best use of federal lands in the National Capital Region. And so that's been expressed in our plans, and those plans have been endorsed, approved by the NCC Board of Directors. And so that's what lays out the mandate and the desire for having this land use established on these lands. It isn't about any one particular person who wants something badly. It's very much the same as the city's official plan, and the city expresses wishes and land use directions for the lands that it has under its jurisdiction. So it's very much the same thing, and so we take our direction from the NCC Board of Directors. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving to some transportation questions. Okay, in the NCC transportation impact study in this application, the numbers for cycle traffic at Bayview/Burnside and Slidell are not representative of normal cycle traffic in the spring, summer, and fall. Why was this cycling traffic impact study undertaken in February 2020 at the height of winter and during a state of emergency when residents are required to stay at home?
That's a very interesting question. I may have to refer that one to Matt at the moment. And was the data taken at that particular time?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I obviously it would be of benefit to have our transportation consultant here to answer these questions. We did submit the application quite a while ago, but the city was adamant in requesting more information related to traffic, and you know, to I guess assist their evaluation in terms of that traffic impact study. So unfortunate as it may be, perhaps, and I'm speculating, that's why that data collection was taken at that time, because it was to address you know, some of the comments we heard back from the city's planning department, and particularly the transportation department, in order to get that application on circulation. And I don't know the true reasoning, but that's what I suspect it is. And certainly, you know, that comment is going to be noted by Allison, who's the city planner on the call, and surely, you know, well, assuredly there will be additional traffic counts to ensure that you know, this is being addressed at the appropriate times, so that the data is, you know, reflective of realities, not during, you know, for example, during COVID or other winter seasons. So I think it's a good question. I wish I could give you a better answer, but I suspect that was the reason why the data was taken at that time.
Thank you. Okay, so another lengthy question. Oh, sorry, apologies. I don't actually see the question in this. Okay, I'm going to figure that out later. Sorry, bear with me, everyone. Okay, we'll move off that subject temporarily. Okay. Is there a height restriction for the embassies? And on that note, there's a similar question. And there's some more to this question that I'm not going to read out loud, but the crux of the question is, what height of buildings will the NCC be proposing on the R5 site and on the O1 sites? Will the NCC commit to only seeking zoning heights that would be compatible with buildings permitted under R1 zoning? So I'll throw those two together.
So given that it's a zoning question, perhaps I'll try to take a stab at this, Andrew, and let me know if you want to add anything. But effectively, you know, NCC isn't seeking permissions that are in any kind of mid or high profile development. So low profile, which is, you know, 4 stories or less. If you were to review the planning rationale, the request is for approximately 11 meters. So that translates to, you know, a 3-story building, whereas right now that R5 zone permits 37 meters, you know, a 12-story building. So certainly low profile. The intent is not to, you know, obstruct views from, you know, some of the high-rise buildings to the parkway, to the river and beyond. So rest assured that that is the intent for the zoning, is to keep it low profile.
Okay, thank you. And 2 folks submitted the same question, so I'm clearing both of them. Okay, a question, comment. Jeff, would the NCC do some digital modeling of the proposed development so people can see on their laptops what it looks like? Maps only go so far. Very fair.
I can put that question over to Matt. I suspect the answer that we're going to hear is that what they're asking for today is the zoning to be allowed to put embassies on the property. The actual, the concept plan, I would certainly be interested in seeing if the NCC is willing to, what that concept plan might look like in 3D. But I suspect the NCC will also tell us that the concept plan is subject to change. Certainly, I'm having a hard time imagining that the city, when it gets to a site plan phase, would be interested in seeing this much surface parking, for instance. But I'll put that question to the NCC. Would you be willing to model out what this concept plan looks like in 3D?
Let's think about that a little bit. But one thing I will pick up on, Councillor Leeper, is around the parking areas. We also sort of look at it and think that it does look like a lot of hard surface, and so we would be, through the federal approval process, be looking for better ways to integrate the parking and servicing areas within the building design. And I would say that some of the architects that could come forth to help these foreign countries put their proposals together could think about that creatively, so that it doesn't look quite the way it does there. It's very sort of simplistic to show those building forms, the simple boxes with parking out front, but I in actual fact that would likely be a more sophisticated design.
And Matt, you're showing sort of a 3D view from the north. It would be interesting to see what that looked like if you replace the current massings that you have there with the concept buildings, even if you don't necessarily show some of the site plan details.
Yeah, exactly, Councillor. I mean, this image was taken from the community design plan, actually. So it kind of gives you a flavor of what three-dimensional modeling will look like in relation to its context, its built context. With regards to modeling the actual concept plan, I don't want to be fixed to that idea, because I think it would be disingenuous to assume that that's what's going to be constructed. So, going through that exercise is not going to really, I'm not sure it's going to achieve anything, to be honest. Because at the end of the day, we're going to slap a ton of disclaimers in saying that, it is just a concept plan. And the concept was submitted in order to deem the application complete. So it was a requirement, to establish policy and zoning on the lands. And at this time, there's no nation knocking on the door asking for this, for any particular parcel at this time. And as a result, there's no design. And so I think going through that exercise wouldn't be of any benefit, I think, at this time. But certainly, I understand, where they're coming from. And when it comes to site plan control for individual parcels, I think that's certainly something that the city will request and require through that application process, though you probably won't get the entire development parcel modeled out. And I think that's what the question was asking for. So I'll leave it at that.
Just to add to what Matt and Andrew have already said, through the federal approval process, renderings of the proposed development are a typical requirement that the NCC would be requesting.
And I'll reiterate that what they're asking for this evening is not permission to build any given size of building or configuration. They're being asked for permission to put embassies on this property. I'm just noticing we're now to the point of 99 plus questions, and I'm just wondering, with due respect to the development team, let's see if we can maybe get through those fairly quickly.
As a very quick aside, Jeff has spoken a few times at a Carleton architects course. And as one of their assignments, they're making a 3D model of Hindenburg and Mechanicsville. And I told them I want that after they're done. So we should have a fun little tool to play with. I told them to mass in all the buildings that have applications. So we'll see. I'm going to lump the next two questions in together. They are who has the final say, as well as should we also be sending emails to the city about this then? So maybe Jeff or
the zoning approval will come from City Council. City Council can either approve the zoning that they're seeking or reject it. If we reject it, there is the possibility that the NCC might take that to the Local Planning Appeals Tribunal. I think some of you will remember the NCC or the Richmond Road, the Rochester Field development was actually the subject of a dispute in front of the board between the city and the NCC for years until the 100-day solution compromise that was recently reached. So the final decision as to whether or not to extend the rezoning is the city's, subject to quasi-judicial oversight of the Local Planning Appeals Tribunal. And I'm sorry, I forgot what the second part of that question was.
Second question
should we be
is,
sending? Yeah, so if you could provide your feedback to Allison Hamlin, and I will ask Fiona to put that email again in the chat. Allison is here this evening. She's not here to defend the proposal or criticize it or support it. She's here to listen to what is being talked about, but you should be providing your feedback to Allison. Allison's job is to take all of the public input, all of the questions that she is posing to the applicant, the city feedback from internal departments, and at some point in the next little while, she'll have to create a report that makes a recommendation to the planning committee of City Council as to whether or not to approve the rezoning. And then planning committee will vote on that recommendation, and then City Council will vote on that recommendation. So your feedback to Allison is one of the most important pieces of feedback that you can provide this evening.
and there's a question further down.
Another thing to add to it is, the more complexity, the complex situation that arises because of the NCC's authority to approve land uses within the National Capital Region on federal lands, which these are, and so we definitely hope to avoid appeals. Given that we are a land use approval authority for federal lands. Yeah, just want to point that out. Thanks.
And there is a similar question I just found by the sounds of it. This is fait accompli. That is already set in stone. Is that correct? So I think Jeff has spoken to that. I'm going to consider that addressed. And the answer is no. What modifications have been made in light of the comments by the community?
Short, we haven't made any modifications to our application or to the concept plan. It was only deemed complete in and around Christmas time and on circulation. So we will be receiving comments and going through them and responding in due course. So nothing has been changed since application submission.
Okay, thank you. There might have, I think I recall a similar question, but I'll get there when I get there. There are still 101 questions in the queue, so bear with me. Given that embassy land belongs to a foreign country, what assurances exists that soil remediation will happen according to the regulations of Ottawa/Ontario/Canada. And there's another question further down asking who will the Canadian taxpayer be paying for the environmental remediation?
Thanks for those questions, Fiona. Firstly, the lands are owned by the federal government. They are owned by the NCC, and because they're designated, because they're classified as national interest land mass, and under the policies of our board of directors, we're not to sell those lands. The likely way that these would be developed is as a long-term land lease. So they remain for the foreseeable future as being owned by the government of Canada and administered in a different way. So they're not, I just wanted to clarify the first part of that question, that they're not owned by a foreign country, and that through the federal approvals process for the development, there would be an impact assessment done under the Federal Impact Assessment Act, and that there would be remediation required to federal standards. I'll ask Jason, pardon me, I'm getting clarification from a member of my team that lands actually may be sold, but in any case, what we would be, in that case, there would be other ways through covenants on title to protect the lands and ensure that, but anyway, I think the question is more about the remediation and the impact assessment. So the federal approvals process would cover an impact assessment and the need to remediate the lands. And Jason, I'll let you continue with that.
Sure. So also there was another part of that question that was wondering about if Canadian taxpayers would be funding the decontamination.
I'll read it verbatim because I found it now.
Yeah.
The site was a former dump and industrial use. Green space will need to be remediated at a cost between $4 and $7 million. Question, will Canadian taxpayer dollars be used to clean up this land to be given to foreign countries for their own exclusive use?
So no, it is the NCC's intention that the developing nations will pay for any remediation required for contaminated soils. So in addition to a review of the project under the Impact Assessment Act, which is part of the federal approval process, and that must be completed prior to any development occurring, that will look at mitigating contaminated soils or the proper disposal of them in accordance with federal regulations. Additionally, the regulations of the Environmental Protection Act, which are the consistent standard for remediation during the development of all Ontario, will be followed through the municipal site plan approval process. And in the case where there is a divergence in the two standards, the federal versus the provincial, the most stringent standard will be followed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the Ottawa neighborhood study using census data shows that Hintonburg-Mechanicsville has a higher prevalence of low income, bracket 20.1 for the community versus 12.6 for the city, end bracket, and is radicalized community, nearly 20%. The city community development framework also identifies Mechanicsville as a priority neighborhood. Academic studies across North America and Europe highlight the broad tolerance for inequalities in urban planning and green space when it comes to lower income communities. Question, as we strive for a better Canada where we are all equal, will the NCC consider the needs of the residents rather than diplomatic missions?
But I believe I've answered that question in another format where we are very much interested in green space and parkland, and I would refer everyone to the Ottawa River South Shore Parklands, which are a real gem in the capital and very accessible to residents in the area, and we're continuing to work to make those parklands more accessible, more beautiful, and to look at ways to reduce car traffic on the parkway so that they can be more thoroughly enjoyed by residents and visitors to the capital alike. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Will the NCC update its traffic impact study and consider solutions to the evident disruption to the neighborhood, including building a separate parking facility for vehicles coming to the embassies that are not allowed into the embassy's secure parking, and reversing the orientation of the embassy sites to have the buildings facing the community with a service road from Hinchy Ave providing access to the parking and garbage pickup at the rear of the embassy building?
Thanks. I think, again, a lot of these very sort of detailed site planning questions will be addressed when we have a proposal, when we have a nation that's going to take one of these sites. Jason, did you want to say anything about the parking arrangement, perhaps?
Apologies, had to unmute myself. I don't think we have a whole lot more to add there, Andrew. This is the kind of thing that will come under review as part of the federal approval process when we get to that site planning stage. But we will endeavor to mitigate potential impacts that traffic and parking would have on the local community. And we would be encouraging, that all of that takes place within the development that is being proposed to the extent possible.
Yeah, thanks for adding that.
Okay, thank you. I'm just noticing some attendees are, different folks are asking the same question. So if I've read one of them out loud, I'm going to just acknowledge the second time I see it that we've already answered it. So I hope that that's clear. Here we go. In the application, there's no report on meaningful consultation with Indigenous peoples regarding the sale of this green space to foreign embassies for their exclusive use. Question: did the NCC consult with the Indigenous peoples on the sale of federal land to foreign embassies for their exclusive use, and is this report available to review?
I would say there's not specific consultation on that particular parcel, but as part of the Ottawa River South Shore Riverfront Park Plan, there is definitely a component of Indigenous engagement, and so we would see this as part of the wider park plan, and it's important to see it in that larger context. There are other parts of the park that are of particular significance, and we're engaged in a process of perhaps renaming the, not perhaps, but we are engaged in a process of renaming the park, and to bring in the Indigenous history and in the area. So very much in touch with our Indigenous partners in the region.
And if I may add to that, Andrew, the NCC will respect its obligations, being within the federal government to consult as required with Indigenous people. But at this stage, there isn't a proposal on the table, so we don't have anything to base consultation on at this point.
Okay, thank you. The Canadian Warbler is one of the 63 species of birds that has been identified on this green space by local birders. It is listed as being of special concern under the Ontario Species at Risk. Question: was a species at risk study undertaken for this green space, and will the NCC make this available for review?
This is again perhaps one of the sort of site plan type questions where in conjunction with the proposal to develop a particular site, there would need to be greater study of the conditions on that site, and how to incorporate the natural features into the site, or to mitigate against any losses that may occur. And Jason, did you want to say anything on that?
Sure, Andrew, I can add to that a bit. Yeah, under the Impact Assessment Act, the developer will be required to conduct species at risk studies. So they will send biologists out to the site to review for species at risk, and that will include the federally listed species. And then in order to meet the municipal approval requirements, they will also have to look at the provincially listed species.
Thank you. Fiona has had to step away for a moment. Margaret is asking, is this going to be an additional cost for the diplomatic security services, who I understand look after security for embassies?
At this stage, there's not a lot to say about that. Each nation is responsible for its security, and they would have to go through developing a sort of a security and surveillance plan with local authorities, and that's sort of with global affairs too. So, Chantal, did you have anything to add on that?
No, you're right. The requirements for security are elaborated between global affairs and the nation that is initiating the development for the diplomatic mission. If ever people want more information, they can go on the global affairs website and Google into their policies the establishment of diplomatic missions, and they will have more information on that on the global affairs website.
Thanks. Tara is asking, please speak to how this project fits the mandate of the NCC. As defined on the NCC web landing page, quote unquote, building on more than a century of experience, the NCC provides unique value in the capital region by fulfilling three specific roles: long-term planner of federal lands, principal steward of nationally significant public spaces, creative partner committed to excellence in development and conservation. So I think Tara's asking how the proposal to use this parcel for embassies fits within that mandate.
Yeah, that's a great question, and we're always happy to talk about the mandate of the NCC. And well, no, but seriously, it is a really fantastic mission that we have, mandate to create a capital for all Canadians, and so I would see this particular proposal under the first pillar that you mentioned there, which is about long-term planner of federal lands. And so we have elaborated the plan for these lands through our extensive planning processes: the Plan for Canada's Capital, the Capital Urban Lands Plan, and the Ottawa River South Shore Riverfront Park Plan. And so this is one small component of the overall land mass that is under NCC jurisdiction. And so, we when seen in context with the others, where we do have a very strong conservation mandate and interest in green space and recreation, this is, but the need for this particular piece of land, it fits within the larger mandate of the capital, and providing a place of welcome to our foreign nations, and fits under that land use long-term planner of federal lands in the capital.
Thank you for that. I know Fiona's, Fiona's got an overview of everything that's in the thing here, so I don't want to screw up what she's doing, but just trying to find one here. Oh, okay, I'll ask one more, because it's fun, and I never get a chance to do it.
Did you
Actually, you know what? I am just going to read a quick comment that's been made, which you know, it's probably not shared by a lot of people on the call this evening, but in the interest of fairness, one attendee says, "I think this is an excellent use of the land, and the development of an embassy row in this location will only enhance the neighborhood. The adjacent properties are either newly developed apartment buildings or older dwellings awaiting purchase by future developers. The Indonesian embassy has been there for more than 20 years and has been an excellent addition to the area." So in the interest of fairness, I'll read that one into the record of this meeting. Fiona, take it away. Thank you.
Did you dismiss the questions you asked? I don't want to repeat.
Yeah, no, I think I've hit done for all of them.
Oh, done. Perfect. Okay. 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 Just checking in. There's still 93 questions.
Fiona, are we going till 9?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so, with this many questions, if that's okay. Okay, so here's one. Can Matt please speak to the other permitted uses that the land could be used for besides embassies?
Sure. So that exception 310 in the zoning bylaw, the 01L lands permit, of course, things like parks and open spaces and urban agriculture, you know, obviously very low impact type of uses, but that exception in itself, and I'll just really quickly read them out again, actually permits cemetery, community center, community health and resource center, courthouse, retirement home, place of worship and dwelling unit, emergency service, residential care facility, hospital and ancillary dwelling units, correctional facility, municipal service center, storage yard limited to a municipal yard, recreational and athletic facility, school, post-secondary educational institution and ancillary dwelling units, and utility installation. So those are the other permitted uses on the open space land. So the zoning actually does permit those, subject to a secondary planning process having taken place, and that actually has taken place back in 2015. So hopefully that answers the question, Fiona. I'm not sure if that clarifies or.
I want to perhaps interject a little bit as well, and just to say that, you know, from the NCC's perspective, the NCC land use plans take precedence and in a way announce the intended use of that land. There is this exception that applies to this particular land, applies to a number of other lands along the shoreline, and it can be a little bit confusing and misleading as to what the federal government's intentions are for the land. So if I could put the message forward, it's that the NCC land use plans set the tone for what we actually intend to put on these lands.
Yeah, and I guess further to that, Andrew, I mean, through the applications, we would be stripping all of these additional permitted uses out, because at the end of the day, that's not what the NCC is obviously looking for. They want the diplomatic mission use and the office use to be permitted on the land. So there's no interest in you know, turning this into a cemetery or having a prison there. Clearly, that's not the intent. It's to accommodate diplomatic missions and affiliated office uses.
Okay, 2 connected questions about parking. The new R4 doesn't allow for parking for low-rise apartment buildings in the area. Why should there be so much parking for these embassies, particularly so close to the transit system? And similarly, why is there so much parking when this is located between 2 major LRT stations? I'm also curious. I grew up on Island Park Drive where we have lots of embassies and I don't believe they have as much parking. So definitely curious as well.
Yeah, these are good questions, and even from the NCC perspective, we would be looking to have less parking on here. The concept plan needs some refinement to reduce the overall preponderance of parking, and to find ways to creatively incorporate that within the development sites. That'll be addressed at site plan.
Okay, thank you. I feel like this one's good to clarify. So if we have no idea what will actually be built, why are we having a meeting on this? Why are we expected to accept an amendment that is effectively secret?
So I'll just quickly tackle this one. It's not that it's secret. I think the intention really is to get the lands ready. So putting the policy and regulations in place, the regulations being the zoning, to permit the uses, is to have basically the lands ready for, to accommodate the diplomatic mission and office uses.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just trying to find something that's a little bit different from what we've already been discussing. I believe we already threw out, sorry, when we were discussing alternative locations, was LeBreton Flats brought up? There's about 3 questions that reference this one. How about across from LeBreton Flats? What about LeBreton? And I think there was another one for LeBreton, but I can't remember if we've addressed those already.
Right. Well, as you know, the NCC is working hard on a concept plan for the LeBreton site. We consider this a once in a generation opportunity to really develop a community of that's exciting and has lots of wonderful amenities and mixed uses, and has that vibrancy that we're looking for, and which puts Ottawa on as a world-class city, and the National Capital Region in good stead worldwide. To that extent, that LeBreton doesn't seem like the appropriate place to put embassies when we have this exciting vision for a vibrant mixed-use community there. Yeah, thanks for that. Anyone want to add? No.
Okay, if we're good, I will move on to the next one. Sorry, I just saw 2 similar questions. And now I've lost them. Okay, that's fine. Bear with me. Bear with me. Do we know which embassies will be placed here? We've answered that, which is no. What is the timeline foreseen by the NCC? That is to say, when does the NCC propose to actually start this project with shovels in the ground?
We don't have any active proposals at this point. Chantal, do you have any other precisions to add on this?
No, we're not in discussions with any nations. Again, this exercise is only to prepare the properties to allow for the diplomatic development and use on the properties. So no, we don't have a specific timeline at this time.
Thanks.
Fiona, may I?
Yep, please.
So I think Jillian's got a good question here. The world, and I'm going to read it, it's a little bit lengthier, but The World Health Organization published a study on urban green space and health in recent years, finding that modern urban lifestyles are associated with chronic stress, insufficient physical activity, and greater exposure to pollutants, and that urban green spaces provide psychological relaxation and stress alleviation, stimulating social bonding and promoting physical activity. Our green spaces promote physical and mental health while also reducing morbidity and mortality. The previous decision, I lost my space. The previous decision, I need new glasses, oh my lord. The previous decision to allocate this green space to foreign countries was made before the pandemic, before significant intensification plans were made for the community, and before this study was published. With all the new information given, does the NCC and the city believe this development is in the best interest of Ottawa residents and Canadians as a whole? The city hasn't weighed in yet. That's going to be the critical question, but I'll pose that to the NCC.
Well, when viewed from our mandate around providing capital for Canadians, and yes, we do feel that this is an appropriate land use, and it again needs to be seen within the wider portfolio of NCC lands, which comprise a very a considerable amount of green space. The preponderance of NCC land is green space, and we are committed to making changes to our parklands to make them even better. That's expressed in our Riverfront park plan, and in the projects that are beginning to be implemented to put more infrastructure and improve the management of those of that parkland. And again, with respect to the pandemic, we are very committed. We've made many changes over the last several months to increase access to NCC green space and to recreational activities. And the Parkway is a prime example of that. We have closed it to cars to make sure that it is accessible to cyclists and walkers, and it has been a roaring success. And we want to build on that.
Thank you. An attendee asks, the 2018 plan designated Embassy Mission Land location along Burnside, not the whole parcel, not abutting the SJAM. What has changed and why? So I'm not sure if that's actually accurate or not, but yeah, so the 2018 plan designated Embassy Mission land location along Burnside, not the whole parcel. So this is the assertion that may or may not be accurate, not abutting the SJAM. So I assume that somebody has seen some plans somewhere that left the green space up against the parkway. Has something changed? And if something has changed from the 2018 plan, why has it changed?
Yeah, I don't know if the slides are still available, and I've modified my screen, but if we could go back to the one that is the Ottawa Riverfront. Well, even that one, the concept plan does show. Yeah, that's good. So I don't know how well it shows up on your screens, but just to show that indeed there is a buffer, a green buffer between the parcel that we're looking at and the edge of the parkway. And I believe in the concept plan that's shown as at least a 30-meter buffer along there. But we're definitely wanting to keep that that buffer and pathway along the south side of the parkway.
Can I ask you to leave that slide up? And I'm going to go to a question that's related from Justin. In the Ottawa River South Shore Riverfront Park Plan, there are plans for expansion on the use of land near the water. For example, removing the cloverleaf, adding lookout areas, etc. Are there any plans to implement those to improve the use of those lands since the current open space is being rezoned for embassies?
Well, we can say that these are planning proposals that came about through quite a lot of professional thought and as well the public consultation, and that over a number of years we developed these plans. So yes, the cloverleaf at Parkdale, I think that's what you're referring to. And yes, you do see kind of a more regular type intersection. That's aspirational, as many plans are. We don't have the funds approved to do that, but we need to see this as in the time horizon of a long-term land use plan, and that's definitely the intent.
Okay.
If
Fiona,
I,
sorry.
Please,
to that
Jason. Yeah.
briefly, Andrew, so there are a number of other NCC projects on the go in the vicinity. There's the Westboro Beach Pavilion, which recently went to our board of directors for concept approval to improve the heritage pavilions there, as well as increasing amenities at the beach. And that is a part of the Ottawa River South Shore Riverfront Park Plan that demonstrates NCC investment in the local area.
Thank you. I'll hand it back over to Fiona.
No problem. Thank you. Two similar questions. Will the NCC consider moving the planned parkland from the eastern end to the western lot and land adjacent to the Indonesian embassy, bearing in mind the traffic issues and population density on the western part of Mechanicsville? And then someone else has echoed that. The NCC proposal has a plot of green space in the eastern end of the site. A lot, at most people live near Ford Ave. Would it not be more feasible to have the green space at the western part of the space that is bordering Ford Ave?
Well, again, if you refer to the land use plans, we see the green space at Slidell being an extension of the parkway lands, and a way as well to link the link La Roche Park to the NCC parklands along the river.
Okay, thank you. Does the plan envision potential protests that might arise in front of these embassies from time to time, depending on the political positions of their respective countries, maybe making in their home country? With the park directly across the street, that might be dangerous for children who would be playing.
Well, again, this is something that would need to be worked out as this sort of the security plan of the particular embassy, in consultation with Global Affairs and others. Protests are by and large peaceful ones, and so that anyway, just to say that that seems perhaps less of a threat and could be mitigated through the security plan for the particular embassy.
Okay. Thank you. I believe you said that specific countries for diplomatic missions had not yet been identified. Is there an actual demand for new diplomatic premises? What sites do these missions currently occupy, and why do they need to move? And on a similar note, has Gatineau been considered for an embassy grouping?
Again, it's a bit challenging to answer because we don't have a particular proposal for this site from any one nation. I do know anecdotally, well, because I do know anecdotally that foreign missions tend to prefer being in Ottawa because it is officially the capital city. But in any case, I think my colleague Chantal has something to add to this.
Yes, obviously the preference is to be in Ottawa, but it's also a function of the nations must obtain an approval from Global Affairs prior to proceeding with the development of a diplomatic mission. And at this time, Global Affairs doesn't provide any approvals for diplomatic missions on the Gatineau side. So diplomatic missions have to be in Ottawa, although residences of the ambassadors are permitted to be in Gatineau. So yeah, Gatineau is excluded right now for diplomatic missions. And we don't have an active request on the table right now. We are not in discussions with any diplomatic missions, although we do have a few inquiries from time to time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry, bear with me. The new official plan has an ambitious target of 4 hectares of parkland per 1,000 inhabitants. Kitchissippi already falls far below that, Mechanicsville and Hintonburg even worse. Can you explain the planning rationale for considering this application when this land could be developed into much needed parkland for this area, which is seeing only increasing densification?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Again, we have a unique situation in Ottawa where we have the federal government who is planning lands that are, federal lands for the benefit of all Canadians, and the City of Ottawa, which has got responsibilities to plan for the day-to-day municipal needs of residents. And so through the regular city processes, my colleague Councillor Leeper, pardon me, you do have a challenge to find with your other development partners ways to fund parkland and to acquire that so that it is available to residents and developed as municipal parks with the kinds of facilities that are normally found in parklands.
Okay. The parcel's intended function was a Burnside mission/embassy. The original plan, which allowed mission development, was sensitive to the environmental impact on the Ottawa River. Why does the rezoning submission ignore environmental impact?
Could you read that again? I don't understand exactly about the original part of that.
So the parcel's intended function was a Burnside mission/embassy. The original plan, which allowed mission development, was sensitive to environmental impact on the Ottawa River. Why does the rezoning submission ignore environmental impact?
I'm not sure I understand the question exactly, but I mean, we are looking to provide a piece of green space on the eastern edge, which again links from the La Roche Park into the Ottawa River South Shore Riverfront Parklands, and through the individual development proposals for the land, there would be an assessment of the environmental qualities on the site, and a need to look at remediating the sites and so on. So there is an overall environmental component to this. It's not being ignored.
Thank you. 2 similar questions. Why are existing buildings/developed lands not being repurposed for new embassy facilities? And earlier, somebody was talking about how the Indonesian embassy repurposed an old building. So maybe you can speak to both of those.
Well, I don't think there's anything stopping an individual nation from repurposing a building elsewhere in Ottawa. it's simply that we at this point need to increase the inventory of lands that are available for this purpose. And we have a unique opportunity as the federal government with these lands to set them aside for this purpose.
If I may, Andrew, I think one of the questions that sort of keeps coming up in the threads that I'm reading, do we really need to? People are skeptical or asking questions about the need for more embassy inventory.
Well, again, it's a responsibility that the NCC has, a very unique kind of responsibility that we have to use the land base that we have responsibly, and this is a very small portion of that overall land base, which we've discerned is suitable for this use, and so we're setting this aside, and we've for that particular purpose. Chantal, do you have anything else to add in terms of any discussions with global affairs or with individual nations?
Nope, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay.
Thanks. You've answered the same way several times. Excuse me 1 second. Clearly there will continue to be that disagreement with folks in the community, figuring that we don't really need to add open space as embassy lands. Embassies in other countries have the ability to repurpose private buildings elsewhere in the city. They could acquire lands of their own through private mechanisms. The NCC clearly feels it has a responsibility to make more inventory of lands available, and that's not a tension that we're going to resolve this evening.
Okay, 2 similar questions. Since this is just a notional plan, will the community be consulted when specific plans are developed? And similarly, this may be forward thinking, but when countries will be identified, will there be an opportunity for public consultation about the architecture of the builds of this proposal if it goes forward?
Yeah, I would say that there's a standard site plan notice process for that goes out to the public, and so when additional applications come in, there would be that notice process and an opportunity for residents to submit their comments.
Just to add to that, Andrew, also under the Impact Assessment Act, there would be a requirement for a 30-day public posting where the public can provide comments on the proposal for consideration.
I will add also, there may be, there certainly will be further opportunity for comments through that site plan application process. I mean, as folks know in the community, there's always a sign posted out in front of the property and a planner assigned to the file, and comments are always welcome and, shared on the city's website. So there's certainly, people will be aware of when the applications are submitted, and will be able to provide comments as needed on the development proposal. And they will share things like the renderings and building elevations and things like that, specifics on remediation, geotechnical information, traffic. So all of these, really technical questions that we're, unfortunately kind of unable sometimes to answer, a lot of those will come to fruition at that time. And again, at that time, there will be opportunity for further comments and discussion. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. 2 similar traffic questions. Does the plan also include the removal of the roundabout? Having been there recently at rush hour, it is evident that increased traffic of 6 embassies and related vehicles would make that impossible in its current size, which is a single lane. And on that same note, does the plan envision changing the traffic light on the SGM Parkway to permit vehicles to turn left southbound off the parkway? I cannot see that any of these embassies would not demand that they have access to and from the parkway to downtown. If yes, that will significantly increase traffic into that entire community.
Andrew, I don't know if you want to answer, but I think in short, from my perspective, the answer would be no. No removal of the roundabout, and no to any additional movements along the parkway that are not currently permitted.
Well said.
Okay, you answered that too quickly. I didn't have the next ones queued up yet. Just checking in, 8:46, we'll go till 9 o'clock, so we'll take a few more questions. Sorry. Jeff, do you want to peruse with me and see if you see any spicy ones for the last few questions? I'm trying to scroll down to give more opportunity. Did a needs assessment inform the indicative design and layout of the plan? And if so, what specific needs does the design take into account?
I would say that the concept plan is very, well, it's very conceptual. It takes the land and divides it up with, a sort of an indicative embassy size, representative of, generally representative of other embassy developments that we might see within the capital. I don't think it's any more detailed than that at this point.
If I may, Cynthia's asking, will any expropriations of private non-NCC property be necessary?
Don't believe so, no.
You'd be accomplishing all this on your own owned lands. There's an interesting comment here from another resident who is saying, this speaker is trying to scare us into supporting building embassies as opposed to the other uses. It's really disappointing. I just want to weigh in and say I'm not sure that's necessarily a fair comment. In that, I don't think the NCC is proposing to put the NCC is not threatening to build a prison here if they don't get embassies. But if I may, I certainly understand the residents' cynicism here. Can I ask Matt and Andrew, why are you raising the other uses that are allowed on these parcels as of right under the current zoning?
Okay, well, fair question. I mean, I didn't raise it to scare anyone off. I mean, when I provide an overview of the policies and regulations, then I want to try to at least explain what they are and what they say. That exception, is quite strange, to be honest, but I pretty clearly said that that's not what the NCC's intent was. So, again, the applications are for diplomatic missions, office uses. That's it. I'm just providing a background to the policy and regulations.
Thank you. So there is a question from Andrea. Is there any consideration to re-examining this entire question given the huge shift we're going through as a society with work at home potentially continuing post-pandemic and office buildings emptying out? So, I'll ask as a sort of follow on to that, are the NCC's, urban lands plans being revisited in light of what might be different patterns of where people live and work in Ottawa post-pandemic?
Well, that's a good question, and as planners, as urbanists, we're all asking ourselves the question: what is going to happen after this pandemic is over. We're living a very, very strange time right now. I'll just say I'm an optimist that that cities are going to come back stronger than ever, and that Ottawa and the National Capital Region are well positioned, in fact, to be a strong urban region. We're not going to sort of turn directions on a dime. It's not in the federal government's way to kind of turn on a dime, particularly with a land use plan. So anyway, I think just to say that, because I don't want to be glib, it's really that our land use plans have been developed over a number of years, that they were well considered, and that it's perhaps too soon to tell exactly what the urban pattern will shift to, so we're not out of the pandemic yet, and this particular use, this embassy, this diplomatic use is a very unique sort of thing to have in a capital city.
Thanks.
So we see the demand being strong.
Yeah, forgive me. I hope this doesn't sound too bad. My son is just on the other side of the wall showering right now. So an interesting question from Gord. Good to see you, Gord. Does the federal policy for Embassy Row begin and stop with 1 and 19 Surjam, or does it extend further west? And if so, how far west?
Well, what we're considering at this point is what you've seen on the location plan, the concept plan, and our NCC plans. It's not any larger than what we're seeing.
A couple of comments I want to read out. I'm sure by now Fiona's found some stuff, but I do want to make the comment from one resident that Andrew said the Byward Market is a special place, but so is our neighborhood. And I have to say I had the same thought as that answer was being provided. And it's, you know, certainly something that I take seriously. And then a second comment, sorry, that in answering a previous question, Roy is saying, you know, a previous answer ignored the unique importance of this land to Mechanicsville, which has no other options for, I'm going to suggest that he's probably talking about no other options for open space. I absolutely get the national mandate that the National Capital Commission has, but these lands are also very important to a very specific geography, and you know I take that seriously, and I'll let you reply to those comments.
Sure thing. On the first one, by no means was I trying to say that that Mechanicsville is not special, not by any stretch of the imagination. It is a very vibrant and an interesting community. The comments about the Byward Market were to speak about its particular land use vocation, which draws people downtown for restaurants, shops, nightlife, festivals, those sorts of things that are expressed in the Byward Market public realm plan, which we very much support. You know, so that I don't want it to be seen as spelling one community or area off against another and calling it one more special than the other, but it's more about the specific vocation of Byward Market.
I appreciate that. Fiona, I'm sorry if you want to keep piloting.
No worries. I just have some good, I think, concluding questions. Sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. I mean, you know, I think there is recognition on our behalf that, you know, the immediate residents are the ones that are going to be most impacted by, you know, this proposal, should it go through. And particularly, you know, the people who live in apartment buildings, have dogs and things like that. And, you know, it's right now, it's really easy to go downstairs and you know, let your dog run around on that property in particular. And we recognize that, and we're sensitive to that. And you know, I think I need to say that out loud. You know, we're hopeful that we could work with the community in providing those connections, you know, enhancing connections to other places along that Parkway corridor. You know, it's 220 hectares of land along that river. And, you know, you have a fabulous little secret area with Lemire Island. I know there's only about 88 participants now, so I'll keep the secret within us. But, you know, it's unfortunate, and I understand that. But, you know, this is, of course, as we've said before, the NCC's mandate, and this is, you know, what they do. And these lands are and have been identified for this function. So I'll leave it at that, but I just wanted to clarify that there is recognition that this is unfortunate for those immediate, you know, residents and neighbors. So.
Okay, so I have some good concluding questions, and then I'm gonna throw it over to Jeff for closing remarks. The sign that was, okay, so this two I'm gonna lump together. The sign that was posted for development of the green space just before Christmas, given the number of plans you have mentioned this evening and the complexity of these plans, will the opportunity for making suggestions be extended so that concerned citizens without planning expertise can examine the plans? And on a similar note, given the Planning Act's recently reduced number of days, 90, for a municipality to respond to a development application prior to triggering an appeal to LPAT, has the development application been deemed complete by the City of Ottawa and NCC, including all the many requisite studies, none the least the environmental, transportation, and planning rationale reports?
I think I'm the one who can answer that one.
That would be helpful, Allison.
Thank you. So I'll start with the second question. Yes, it has been deemed complete. It doesn't go on circulation until the city deems it complete. So the studies that came in are adequate for us to review the proposal. We will be still, you know, collecting more information. We circulate to technical agencies. We have these kinds of sessions. I've received so many emails. So all of that also goes in, and we will continue to ask questions and work through things. And the first question about why was the application deemed complete and the signs posted and the notice given right before Christmas, that's just when it happened. That's where we don't have a time when we take a break from these statutory requirements for notice and for circulation. So that's just how it fell. And the councillor asked for the commenting period to be extended until we could have this meeting. And I don't know if the councillor has said how much longer it will be after this meeting, but I mean, I think we could say a week or so, and anybody can call me if they has questions about the plans and studies. That's it. Thanks.
Allison, I have a question, which is, do you have a planning committee time frame in mind?
No, I mean, there's still a number of things to work through. This is an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment. So those are two things with different levels of detail. Official plan amendment because it amends the secondary plan. But we do have to keep in mind that there is a new official plan being developed. So that could factor in so no, there's no time frame, but I think, you know, we could expect this will, like the NCC said, this is not about a site plan level of development. This is about policy to look at the future land uses. So I think that there will have to be a decision, I don't know, within the next, say, 4 months.
Okay. So if there's, you know, if you're thinking, sorry, where are we? We're February, March, April, May, June. So, you know, sort of one of the last planning committees before we break for a few weeks in the summer, which, you know, I have the opportunity. So you're going to provide your comments to the city planner as residents, and the more those are focused on, the planning merits of this, the better. I am open for the next several months to receiving your feedback, and I have the opportunity to lobby on residents' behalf with the city planner. I can't dictate how Allison will recommend or not, but I can continue advocating for several weeks with the planner, and in fact, at some point, once the planner has made their recommendation and it goes to a vote, it starts to become more of a political discussion at planning committee, and as Chair Harder says, we'll accept feedback right up until the moment we turn our microphones on to vote at the political level. There's no deadline for comment for people to lobby the politicians. But I would suggest that, within the next couple of weeks, where you have arguments to make based on understanding of the official plan and the relevant policies and plans that are in place at the city, that you should get those into Allison. And I think that actually is how I will conclude. This is not the last step. There was one question I saw. This presentation that was given to residents this evening. I mean, I see a lot of the same slides that come from the planning rationale, but I'm wondering if I can get the PDF of the presentation to. Yeah. So we'll distribute a copy of this presentation. Folks can watch the presentation online sometime within the next couple of days, and I look forward to your continued feedback through the rest of this process. Thank you very much to the applicant team for coming out, taking some tough questions. Allison, thank you for being here and listening, and Fiona, thank you very much as always for organizing and running a smooth open house, despite the councillor's attempt to derail it.
Thanks, Councillor, and thanks, Fiona, for everything.
Thanks,
Residents,
everyone.
thank you very much for coming out. It's good to see the high level of interest in this file. I know it's going to be an active discussion for quite some time. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
If you posed a question that didn't get answered, just shoot us an email. I'm copying and pasting the remaining questions and comments now, and they will go to Allison and
Excellent. Thank you very much,
hang
everyone.
out while I do that, but
Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye now.
thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Okay, thanks, everyone. I'm closing it now. Bye now.